A young girl lives on the streets of a poor town after being abandoned by her mother. People see her as a shadow, never asking her name or story, treating her like she doesn't exist. In a small, quiet town, a little girl drifts through the streets like a ghost. She's no more than 6, her clothes worn thin, her eyes tired beyond her years. No one knows her name. To most, she's just that kid, always walking alone, never speaking, always watching. People look past her. Some toss her scraps. Others tell her to move along. But no one asks where she sleeps or if she's okay. She carries a pillowcase tied around her shoulder, filled with broken things that still matter to her. And though no one sees it, there's a quiet strength in how she keeps going. She doesn't ask for anything. She doesn't cry. But every day she survives is proof of something greater than luck. It's resilience in its purest form. Sometimes the smallest souls carry the deepest strength. All it takes is one act of kindness to change everything. She may be invisible to most, but her spirit, untouched by cruelty, has the power to inspire those who choose to truly see her. Chete. One freezing night, she finds a man unconscious in a dark alley. With no one willing to help, she runs off alone to find assistance despite being pushed away. The night was bitter, the kind that numbs your fingers and makes silence feel louder. As she looked for shelter, she noticed a man collapsed near a dumpster, his hand clutching his chest, eyes half open. He wasn't just sleeping, he was in trouble. She froze, unsure what to do. No phone, no adult to call, just fear and a flicker of courage. She turned and ran to the pharmacy nearby, grabbed the clerk's sleeve, begging without words. The woman pushed her away. Still, the girl reached into her pillowcase bag and held up her last treasure, a crisp $100 bill. The woman stared, sighed, and made the call. By the time help arrived, the girl had disappeared back into the shadows. She didn't wait for thanks. Her kindness wasn't loud. It was real. She had no idea the man was a billionaire. All she knew was that someone needed her. And her courage in that moment would inspire something far greater than she ever imagined. She offers her only dollar bill to plead for help and get an ambulance. Unbeknownst to her, the man she saves is a billionaire in the middle of a personal crisis. The worn bill had been folded and hidden in her pillowcase bag for weeks, her only possession of value. It was meant for something important, though she never knew what that meant until now. When the pharmacy clerk shoved her away, she didn't cry or speak, just held up the bill with trembling hands. That one quiet gesture was enough. The woman called for help, not out of care, but because the money made her listen. And while the ambulance came, Nia slipped back into the alley shadows, unseen and unthanked. The man she saved was Charles Whitmore, a grieving billionaire who had given up on life. He hadn't expected to make it through that night, but because a little girl with nothing showed him kindness, he got a second chance. She didn't know his name. She only knew someone needed help. And her silent bravery would go on to inspire a man who had lost all hope, and begin a story neither of them could have imagined. After surviving, the man is deeply moved and determined to find the girl who saved him. He searches for clues and follows her trail through shelters and food lines. Charles Whitmore opened his eyes in a hospital room, unsure how or why he was still alive. The pain in his chest had faded, but something deeper had cracked open. A nurse told him someone had called for help just in time, but no name was left behind. Only a vague report. A call came from a pharmacy on Maple and 3rd. That detail was all he needed. Still weak, Charles retraced the steps from that night, ending up at the small pharmacy where it all began. Security footage confirmed it. A little girl, no shoes, clutching something in her hand, handing over a folded bill. Then she vanished. No name, no voice, just one act of pure kindness. With that image burned in his mind, Charles began searching. He visited food banks, shelters, church steps, anywhere she might go. He didn't care how long it took. The world had ignored her, but he wouldn't. What she did reminded him of everything he'd forgotten about humility, grace, and unseen heroes. Her bravery didn't just save his life, it began to inspire a change in him. One he didn't know he needed, and one he would never forget. He finds her quietly standing in a food bank line, cautious and distant. He offers her a home, not out of pity, but out of respect and gratitude. Days into the search, Charles spotted her near the end of a long line at a local food bank. She was smaller than he remembered, bundled in an oversized coat, her face half hidden beneath a hood. But her eyes, they were the same. Quiet, watchful, brave. She clutched a worn pillowcase bag like it held her whole world. She didn't notice him at first. When she finally reached the front, the volunteer asked for a name. She said nothing, just like before. The man shook his head and pointed her away. She turned without protest, already used to being overlooked. That's when Charles stepped forward. "She's with me," he said gently. The volunteer hesitated, then handed her the food. But the girl didn't look up. She held the bag tight and stood still, unsure. Charles knelt, voice steady. "You saved me," he said. "I remember you, and now I'd like to return the kindness, not with money, but with a home. A real one." She didn't speak, but for the first time, her eyes met his and didn't flinch. Sometimes, the smallest souls inspire the biggest change. And in that moment, both their lives quietly shifted, for good. She stays, slowly adapting to the warmth of a real home. Though she doesn't speak, she begins to trust him, and a quiet connection forms. When they arrived at his house, she didn't rush in. She stood at the doorway, unsure if it was really hers to enter. Charles didn't pressure her. He simply stepped aside and said, "It's your choice." Eventually, she walked in, slowly, cautiously, like someone expecting the door to shut behind her at any moment. The days that followed were quiet. She didn't talk. She barely made a sound. But she stayed, and that was enough. She sat at the kitchen table when food was ready. She curled up on the porch with a blanket he left out for her. She moved through the rooms like she was learning how to exist again, safely. Charles never asked questions. He didn't pry about where she came from or why she didn't speak. He just made sure the lights worked in her room, the fridge stayed full, and that the house felt like a place she belonged. It wasn't grand gestures that built trust. It was small things, warm meals, folded blankets, a nightlight left on. That was the language of kindness she understood. And little by little she opened up, not with words, but with presence. Her silence was never empty. It was healing, and that simple unspoken bond would go on to inspire a transformation in both their lives, one rooted in patience, love, and something finally feeling like home. When he suddenly falls ill, she speaks for the first time. "Are you okay?" Then she softly asks, "Are you really my dad now?" And from that moment, they become a true family. It happened on an ordinary morning. Charles stood from the kitchen table, but pain shot through his lower back and dropped him to one knee. His mug shattered against the tile. Before he could catch his breath, she was there, frozen, wide-eyed, clutching the edge of the table. Then came the whisper, "Are you okay?" It was the first time he had heard her voice. Small, unsure, but clear. His heart caught in his throat. She stepped closer, arms slightly raised, ready to help, but afraid to touch. He nodded slowly. "Just a little ache," he said, smiling through it. She guided him to the couch in silence, then stood before him, fidgeting with her sleeves. Her lips parted again. "Are you really my dad now?" He looked at her. This brave, quiet girl who had given him more life than he ever imagined, and answered gently, "Only if you want me to be." She nodded. okay? Dad. It wasn't grand or loud. It was real. In that fragile word, everything changed. No longer strangers, no longer lost. Through one child's kindness, a man found his way back to life. And through his steady love, he would inspire her to believe in family again.